going
see.
live. The
Yes,
computer's
yes.
going live.
After COVID, we never really started.
All right, hold on a second.
But it's still there.
Oh,
All right, we're going live.
very good.
The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds and the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists. Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Hello.
Gideon Galosh from Blockchain Hotel.
Hey, hey.
Victoria Jones from Satoshi's Page.
Good evening, everybody.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, GameStop buys Bitcoin. And then their stock goes down. GameStop stock, say that 50 times fast, tumbles after company announces plans to raise $1.3 billion to buy Bitcoin. At first, everyone was excited because GameStop had a Bitcoin treasury initiative. Then, after they heard of their plans to raise $1.3 billion, no one seemed to like it all that much. Ben Ark, what do you think about GameStop copying MicroStrategy's strategy and not doing so well with it?
Yeah, they're LARPing MicroStrategy right there. I mean, it's convertible notes, how they want to raise the 1.3 billion. So effectively they're liquidating. Have we started? We're starting.
You can't activate the recording from the full screen mode. You can only activate the recording from the small screen mode, thanks to the Zoom people who never use their own software.
Yeah,
also, sometimes when you push the live stream button, it live streams. Other time, it asks for you to copy and paste 3 pieces of information. Today, it just live streamed.
You're navigating a logistical nightmare right there,
fun
Thomas.
Software, man. It's fun software.
Yeah. But it's 1.3 billion in convertible notes, which means that the shareholders are going to get liquidated. So if you had stock in GameStop, you're going to dump them because you don't want that to happen. And also, MicroStrategy is built out of a bunch of people. I mean, I don't like it. I think it's bad for Bitcoin, but it's a bunch of Bitcoiners and people who care about Bitcoin, whereas GameStop isn't necessarily that. And the people who own GameStop stock aren't necessarily that either. So there is going to be a dump in the price. But yeah, it's sort of LARPing sale. I mean, ultimately, it might be a good strategy for all of them, and it will pay off in the long run. But I think in the short run, it's just going to scare any investors, and they're just going to start dumping stock, which is what we've seen.
This whole GameStop thing has been ridiculous from the beginning. I love the movie Dumb Money, but I think this is a dumb company. I think everything they do is dumb, just dumb everything else. They could have had Bitcoin ATMs. They could have been a Bitcoin information center. They could have thrown all these games in the trash and just had their employees teach people about Bitcoin, how to open Bitcoin accounts, and how to get fees on all of that. Instead, they're copying MicroStrategy, which may or may not work, but no one on Wall Street seems impressed. Gideon Galosh, what do you think of GameStop? Great movie, dumb company.
To be honest, I think it's depending on the target audience also. In the case of GameStop, obviously the stakeholder weren't okay with this move. I think same with Microsoft, for example. If they did this in the past, we would have seen a similar thing. But it depends on the company, and everything. Everyone who's talking about it doesn't matter for Bitcoin, from my point of view. So we will see.
I agree, Gideon. Microsoft didn't want it, and if they forced people to take it, they would have been upset, and we would have seen this kind of backlash even against them. And again, we're talking about the place that sells old video games. They're like a pawn shop that sells used video games. They're lucky they had the first stock pump. They're lucky they had the movie. They're so far behind the meme. They could have had GameStop coin already. Victoria Jones, what do you think about GameStop? It was supposed to go up, right?
I think there's quite a strong fan base behind GameStop due to, I think they've got some social influencers who really kind of pumped the price when they had that whole episode. Was it 2021 when they really pumped the stock price and then brought it back down again? And so, I think a long time ago, GameStop lost the reputation of actually having its stock based on, real solid, tangible, good decisions in the real world. And of course, Michael Saylor, who we like to love and hate in equal measure, obviously was buying Bitcoin before any companies had heard of it, and also just around the time of the 2020 halving. Whereas now, we're kind of getting towards the end of this bull run, even though it's been largely pathetic. It's the kind of classic mistake that retail investors used to make, which was to get interested in Bitcoin right towards the end of the bull run. It's just like now you've got the retail corporates, making exactly the same mistake. And the real Bitcoiners know exactly what's going on. And of course, the very sophisticated people on Wall Street know exactly what's going on. So, it's a gimmick. I wouldn't take it seriously. It doesn't surprise me at all that, it went up, then it went down. That's the nature of GameStop all around, really.
This is ground control to Thomas. Can't hear what you're saying.
Speaker settings. It says it's working. How about now?
Yeah, it's working now.
When you don't change anything and it still works, that's always a good feeling. This must be the new version of Zoom. Anyway, with GameStop, they always say that you can't lose money on Bitcoin, but this GameStop company, they just might find a way. Like Victoria was saying, they're clearly buying the bottom of the top. It may just descend lower. They could be sitting there telling their shareholders, this MicroStrategy guy said it was a great idea. He said it would be fine, and then it doesn't work out for them. Let's go right to the exit question. Predicting against the mad Bitcoin ball, the Bitcoin predictor ball, the source of all truth and knowledge in this universe. Ben Ark, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
Where is it compared to last week? Is it lower or higher?
That's not the question.
No, but I want to know. I want to know if I won the last one or not. And then it's going to determine as to where I say it's going. I only check the price on this show every Friday, and then that's when I make my call. All right, lower.
It looks like lower. It's been. I'm gonna try to get the chart up here for Ben.
Gonna go for a streak.
There we go.
Very streak. Look at that.
Low.
Look at those dead cats bouncing down that mountain.
All right, let's go to Gideon Galosh. Higher or lower this time next week?
Lower.
Victoria Jones, is it all pessimism? Does everyone say lower, even as the lip of this chart starts to bend upward, as all the chart people know?
Well, generally speaking, when the majority is disillusioned and they think it's going lower, that's when Bitcoin surprises us. So I'll be the contrarian this week and say higher.
That's right. When the chips are down, Bitcoin always comes through. Now we'll ask the ball, will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Shaking the ball can cause bubbles. There's a danger to that. And it says... Really unreadable today. I don't know. We might have to have a re-roll. There seems nothing there.
Give it up the ghost.
That could be a really ominous sign.
Yeah, just Bitcoin instead. It implodes. What would you do? What would you do if you woke up and Bitcoin was dead? Actually, just dead. Just stopped working.
So maybe then there is no price next week.
Yeah, no price. What would you do there? What would your day be?
Well, just buy more.
But it'd be dead. Like if you're just gone, just dead, what would you do? You could just imploded completely somehow.
Looking for another business, probably.
Fortunately, the ball reads, reply hazy, please try again.
Ooh,
so there's no response from the very difficult to read, perhaps like got a little dehydrated. I'm not sure what happened to the ball. but it was impossible to read, like even beyond my bad eyesight. But let's keep moving on to issue 2. Arthur Hayes on the one reason that tariffs can't stop Bitcoin's surge. Arthur Hayes says that tariffs are inflationary, but transitory. They're just going to pass through. Meanwhile, he says that Chairman Powell will continue to inject free money into the system as cryptocurrency continues to grow, regardless of the economic situation and no matter what happens. Gideon Galosh, what do you think about Arthur Hayes' prediction and the idea that Bitcoin can outlast tariffs and even a terrified world market?
In general, I agree. It's the same old story. But with a view on ETFs, I don't see this scenario because it's not a own Bitcoin, you know. So this is where the VCs are looking for, and this is not the main idea from my point of view.
Victoria Jones, what do you think? He says the Bitcoin can outlast the tariffs. Will it happen?
Well, I think it can, but I think in the short term, it's going to create a lot of difficulty, which is what we've seen ever since Trump came into office. And I think this misunderstanding is occurring because people misunderstand the definition of inflation. You know, commonly people think inflation is just about prices going up, but actually inflation is about the amount of currency in the economy. And actually, by increasing tariffs, one of the things that Donald Trump is doing is sucking liquidity, any excess liquidity that's going towards tariffs. You know, in the UK Chancellor has just given her spring budget, and any contingency that she had in her budget has now just been swallowed up by the fact that Donald Trump wants all of this tariffs. And so actually his implementation of these tariffs is in fact deflationary. You know, this is also symptomatic of some of the other things that have been happening in the economy. Just the fact that Jerome Powell has been trying to raise interest rates. They've been raising them around the world. Obviously, they've slowed that down because people are worried about some kind of crisis. But the crisis tends to happen before they go into quantitative easing or lowering interest rates, and they're really trying to avoid doing that. And I think they will right until the last minute because they've got to create this illusion that they know what's going on. But you know, everything is teetering on a knife edge. You know, the UK Chancellor is trying a huge gamble with what she's doing with the nation's finances. She's obviously doing a better job than Liz Truss did because, you know, Liz Truss came along and tried to borrow extra money and immediately caused pensions to crash. But Rachel Reeves was able to manage it in a slightly different way, and I've covered exactly what she did in the most recent letter on my website. But her strategy is still very precarious. And, you know, at any moment, the whole house of cards could kind of tip over. So I don't know. I think Arthur Hayes is being, I don't know. He's not, it doesn't sound to me like he's analyzing it properly. I think all Bitcoiners are correct that ultimately Bitcoin will outlast it because the moment there is a crisis, they'll have to, you know, introduce some measures in order to alleviate that. But the crisis hasn't happened yet. We all know that it's on the way. And what will happen is with the crisis, like we saw with the pandemic, it will actually push the price of Bitcoin down before it goes up again. So, you know, people need to watch out for that and be really careful with their finances, I think, you know, rather than listening to people like this. Because yes, if you're investing for long term, Bitcoin's great. But if you're investing because you think it's going to go up tomorrow, you are going to be disappointed. So brace yourselves for that.
That's always the question, if Bitcoin is a reserve asset or if it is a risk asset. And if you know too much about it, you think it's a great reserve asset and it'll hold its value. But every time, everyone who thinks it's a risk asset freaks out and sells their Bitcoin when the stock market goes down. So if the stock market's going down, whether you like it or not, Bitcoin is likely to follow. Ben Ark, what do you think about Arthur Hayes and his powerful hopium? He sounds like an old school Bitcoiner thinking there's still another bounce after the halvening, because there just might be.
Yeah, I mean, the markets, they do see it as an unstable asset because it isn't unstable. It does go up and down quite sharply, and it's a speculative high risk asset as well, as far as the markets are concerned. So people step out of Bitcoin, or traditional investors will step out of Bitcoin and they'll go into something like gold when there looks like there's more instability in the markets. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, like Victoria was saying, it is a house of cards. Like, look at 2008 with the housing crisis. Like, retrospectively, when you look back, it was so obvious there was something wrong. And it's like, well, why didn't more people see that this thing was going to happen? But it almost like ground all of our economies to just made all our economies completely collapse in on themselves. And it's because actually this globalized world in which we live in is quite delicate. And if you start pulling at the levers too hard, like Trump is, and effectively like taking the US and then pulling out of the globalized market and impacting pretty much every industry with these tariffs, there's going to be repercussions, and some of those repercussions could be incredibly severe. On the not plus side, but I mean, if they do start doing quantitative easing, like the Fed's job ultimately is to try and keep a stable economy, then that just does pump some cheap money into the markets, which when you've got cheap money being pumped into the market, and then you've got this, deflationary things such as Bitcoin, then that could cause the Bitcoin price to go up. But it's scary. It's scary the amount of fiddling they're doing, heavy-handed fiddling with the globalized world's economy and the amount of people in which it'll impact. But yeah, I think this guy's smoking the hopium. It does matter, and there will be an impact from these tariffs, of course.
I think everything's going to be fine. And remember, if you're selling your Bitcoin now, it's the big businesses that are buying it. You're basically selling straight into the ETF's mouth. So we'll see how that works out in the future.
I mean, ultimately as well, like, just one more point, like, because I mentioned the 2008 housing crisis. This is where Bitcoin came from. I mean, this is one of the main justifications for the publication of the white paper at that particular point in time and in history, was to say, look, we need something which has some more predictability to it than traditional financial markets and money, and the way in which money is printed by things like the Fed. So it makes sense that it's good, I suppose, if we have another black swan event like 2008, that Bitcoin exists, and maybe people will really learn about its initial why it was devised and what its promise could be to the world's finances.
There's always hope that people will learn, says Ben. There's always hope. And if you'd like to learn more about hope, check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where we've got 4,257 videos, and they're all free. We've even got some new shorts that don't have my face on them. There's Josh and Jamison and Vlad, Victoria, and more on the shorts at World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue 3. Issue 3, U.S. scraps sanctions on Tornado Cash. Crypto mixer accused of laundering North Korean money. Tornado Cash was allegedly used to help the Lazarus Group, a North Korean hacking group, launder more than $455 million in stolen funds. However, in a statement, the new Trump Treasury Department said that it had decided to repeal the sanctions against Tornado Cash, quote, after reviewing legal and policy issues raised by the use of sanctions within evolving technology and legal environments. Victoria Jones, what do you think about the United States suddenly changing their mind on Tornado Cash because of evolving technology and legal environments?
I think they're starting to figure out how vulnerable they are, to be honest. Because, Bitcoin completely disrupts how government works. And literally the only way they can take advantage of cryptocurrencies and make it work for them is to have some involvement with the stable coins. But of course, if they've started all of these laws that are meant to clamp down on the stable coins, then obviously they're shooting themselves in the foot. And so I think now that they're taking an interest in cryptocurrencies, they're kind of going, right, okay, we need to change our strategy here. In which case it doesn't serve them at all in order to prosecute them. If they've got any power at all, they want to be prosecuting Bitcoin, not the stable coins, because it's the stable coins that will support their continued existence, and Bitcoin that will disrupt it when you actually get down to how these cryptocurrencies work. So yeah, I think it's very telling that they've suddenly decided to do that.
It seems like more ridiculous to me. It's similar to Ross. They don't agree. They haven't changed their mind, but they're pulling back, maybe because they're paid. The drug war is not over. The tornado cash war is not over. Maybe it's on pause. Ben Ark, what do you think? They've dropped the sanctions against Tornado Cash. It might have been used to move the evil money, but it doesn't matter anymore.
I mean, they don't really mean anything, these sanctions. They can't do anything. It's just free and open source code, and there's no way you can sanction like US citizens from using it. And I think that's one of the things they were trying to sanction. But ultimately, I mean, it's not really my cup of tea. Something like Tornado Cash, but it kind of reminded me of the good fight which the cypherpunks had against the US and the UK over cryptography back in the day, and ultimately those laws had to be repealed, and the attack on sharing cryptographic code had to be withdrawn because it was just ridiculous. You can't stop it, and that's similar with something like Tornado Cash. There's not really much you can do apart from tell all your citizens they can't use it, and if they do, then they're breaking some law. So I think ultimately it's an admission of defeat that they can't really police the thing in which they're trying to sanction, and it just has to exist. And it was an interesting case study because it's one of the fewer case studies on trying to sanction free and open source code. So it's ultimately a good thing that they've had to withdraw the sanctions. But I feel sorry for the developers because they're still going to jail for it.
I'm going to date myself horribly here, but there once was a time when you downloaded PGP, it would ask you these scary questions and make sure that you wouldn't export the encryption out of the United States. You had to like say yes in the command line. It was like when you went to the airport and they'd be like, did you pack your bag yourself? Did you leave your bag anywhere? Did you bring any firearms today? We don't allow those. Gideon Galash, what do you think? The government's changed its mind? Tornado Cash is fine.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. It's kind of, if you can't beat it, be friend with it. And in the best case, it's the situation that they can't just do anything. So they try to, be a part of it, kind of. The worst case scenario, maybe a backdoor in the future.
Exit question. Do you think this will be a lasting policy change that the United States is just fine with mixers now? Or is this part of the temporary Trump crypto reprieve? Victoria Jones, what do you think?
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What was the question again?
Do you think it'll be a lasting change? Will it last beyond the Trump administration or even beyond the next 2 years? Or will the United States change its mind and start cracking down on crypto again as soon as we turn the corner?
I think they need to change their strategy. I think once they understand what they're dealing with, they need to change their strategy. Definitely. So I think the changes will be lasting. I think it's going to be a while before they figure it out and they all get on the same page. But I think they're paying attention and they're starting to figure it out, I think.
Ben Ark, lasting changes? Are the feds getting wise?
I mean, this is the whole point of uncensorable technology, isn't it? I mean, they could cause damage, and I think maybe this is a thing which they're aware of by tainting certain coins, saying that you can use some Ethereum, but you can't use Ethereum, which has been through Tornado Cash, so this one's worth more than this one. And then you end up with sort of this weird fungibility attack, which could be quite detrimental to the ecosystem. But yeah, this is the very nature of the things we work on is, uncensorability. Like, well, what are they going to do? It's a brave new world. Rejoice.
Gideon Galash, are we going mainstream? Is everybody cool with encrypted mixers now?
To be honest, I'm not sure. Too much in this crypto bubble, so maybe I have a wrong view on this. But in general, it would be great, obviously, if there would be some kind of acceptance or be okay with it, kind of.
Well, obviously, I'm on the cryptography side here. I'm downloading PGP to encrypt my email, but I still kind of see this as a nothing. I think this is a temporary kind of thing. And I don't believe that we'll be celebrating the Department of Justice's stance on cryptocurrency in the next few years, but we'll see how it goes.
I think it all ends with Trump meme coin as a payment in the US.
As soon as you can pay your parking fees in TrumpCoin, everything will be better, which is kind of the next issue. Moving on to issue 4, Trump's World Liberty Financial crypto venture to launch stablecoin. Yes, just as with every other friend of Bitcoin, they come in the front door dressed in the orange suit, loving the Bitcoin. Pretty soon they're making their own NFTs. Then they're making their own Trump branded Trump coin. And then Trump's backed World Liberty Financial is making their own stable coin. World Liberty's USD1 is to be, quote, backed by US treasuries and dollars. The venture has raised $550 million from advanced sales of the dollar WLFI tokens, and it's said to be on the Ethereum and Binance networks. Its price will be forever locked at $1. Ben Ark, the president's back again with World Liberty Financial. What do you think about the Trump stablecoin?
I mean, and an orange head as well. Like his head looks like a Bitcoin, so we all bought into it. Obviously, we're like, this is our man. His head, he's got an big orange Bitcoin head. But no, lo and behold, we can't trust the billionaire politician. What's going on with the world? Isn't it a surprise?
If you can't trust a billionaire, who can you trust?
Yeah, exactly. If you can't trust like a billionaire in human form, probably a lizard, then who can you trust? I just don't see why they don't use Tether. I'm like, just use Tether if you want a USD digital currency. It's out there, everyone's using it. I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. Building your own things is hard, and there's a risk to it, and Tether just kind of works, and everyone's using it. So I think ultimately that's where we'll end up. I've said it before. It's my prediction. But yeah, I mean, these currencies are going to have to go digital, and they're going to have the same like digitally native properties, which something like Bitcoin has, because they have to compete now that something like Bitcoin exists. And but ultimately, yeah, Bitcoin has properties which they can't compete with. So ultimately, Bitcoin wins. But for now, I just don't see why they just don't use Tether, personally.
Well, they don't use Tether because they don't get the fees. The whole point's to get the fees here, Ben. They're after the fees. It was like if someone came to me and they said, hey, Tom, we'll make your own stablecoin and you get all the fees. Of course, I'm going to be promoting Tom Tether, not your Tether. Gideon Galosh, they're Bitcoin's best friends, and now they're starting a stablecoin next door. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure which direction this will end up, but from now it looks like that Trump is doing everything to get as much fiat dollars at the end of the day. And this is what he also probably will do with the whole crypto ecosystem. And it doesn't matter at all, from my point of view, what he's doing. He's just trying to maximize the fiat rewards. And in this case, we will see if, for example, Binance as a partner, or what did I read last time, Crypto.com, they have obviously very, very strong partnerships. And this is also very, let's say a strong sword in this whole ecosystem. So we will see.
It was nice to read some familiar names in the announcement. They were using BitGo for security. So they didn't bring in, Trump BitGo or something, some kind of their own version of that. So I did like that part. Victoria Jones, what do you think? They're new to crypto. They're here to save us. They're launching their own coin.
Yeah, we're living in a very interesting time in history. I mean, we've all emerged from this period of time where governments had their own currencies that we're very familiar with, like the US dollar and the British pound. But actually, there was a point in history before currencies were controlled by governments where they'd be issued by individual banks before they all became centralized under the country's banks. And then, of course, once governments had centralized the currencies, they were able to ban any other currencies, a bit like the continental dollars in the United States that the British counterfeited in order to create inflation during the Civil War. So for a period of time, governments were able to ban that. You know, there was actually a law in place before Bitcoin was invented that said that US citizens weren't allowed to create another form of money. And just before Bitcoin was invented, you had companies like eGold that were shut down by the US government because they were doing exactly that. And it's one of the reasons why Satoshi Nakamoto invented something that was anonymous. You know, a lot of people talk about Satoshi Nakamoto being a CIA agent, but actually, if you understand the history of Bitcoin, he had good reasons to keep himself anonymous because, you know, people had tried to create a form of digital cash and had been shut down because it was centralized. The only reason Bitcoin has managed to be successful is because it's decentralized and no one can shut it down. However, until everybody understands that, it's given everybody permission to create a new form of cash. It's like Bitcoin came out of nowhere, was able to disrupt the existing system, which created great fascination and great wealth for the people who understood it. But until Bitcoin is developed enough for everyone to use as a form of digital cash, everybody is going to be trying to create their own stable coin because there's a lot of money in producing and handling money. You know, the people who run the money run the world, and that's how governments have worked. And by having a decentralized currency, it is a huge paradigm shift in the way in which the world operates, and it will disrupt government. You know, if you're unhappy with your governments, the best thing to do is invest in Bitcoin and find ways to transact with each other in it. But that's a really hard message to get across. And until everyone gets it and it's easy to do, we're just stuck with the status quo. And the people who are able to issue their own stable coins will absolutely mint it until overnight, suddenly they won't be worth anything anymore because the people who understood about Bitcoin and bought that instead will be the only ones left to transact with because everyone will figure out that Bitcoin is really the one you needed right from the beginning.
Well, it's just like Uncle Vitalik always said, if you want to be rich, you've got to print your own money, Dimitri. And of course, I had to look it up in ChatGPT, but the classic phrase from the Revolutionary War is not worth a continental, which was phrased for the continental dollar, which was worthless as the government printed and printed and printed during the war, leading to the continental dollar being worthless. I have a slightly different take on this, probably than the libertarians on the panel. In certain ways here, it kind of feels to me like the president is usurping the powers of the government. As much as they are maligned and everyone hates the idea of CBDCs, it seems like a natural extension of the dollar to take the digital dollar concept, which is already added to the banks in their back ends, and they're allowed to use millions and millions to move these digital dollars. Why not give that to the people? Why not give the people a way to transact where the United States government would get the fees? Kind of seems like something that the government should be doing, but we're outsourcing to this private individual. Again, there'll be currently no controls or monitoring on this coin. Any foreign government could buy it, putting the fees into his pocket, leading to our exit question. Ben, Ark, what do you think? Is the World Liberty Financial coin kind of stepping on the toes of what should be a true U.S. government coin?
I mean, it's a very good point that, you know, soft currencies exist and they're an important part of our modern world. Some people don't like them. Personally, I think it's just technology, and all technology can be used in bad ways and good ways. Nothing's evil, nothing's good. It's not that binary. It's easy if, you know, the world were binary, Bitcoin good, CBDCs bad. But I do think we'll probably see the emergence of some good CBDCs, which are managed well and controlled through some sort of federation or something where they work for whatever country, and the people of that country to, you know, create fiscal stimulus and whatever else currencies do these days. But yeah, it's a bodge job getting this private company to make your stable coin. And there's a nice quote in the chat there that all these stable coins sound unstable, and I think it's true. Like your tech stack making those stable coins doesn't sound very stable or dependable. We can probably do better. We've got a pretty good technology stack. If you really want to make your soft currency, CBDC, digital currency for your country, then, you know, there's better ways of building it than the ways in which they're trying to build them now.
It does seem like if they had a government coin, they'd be able to add the censorship that the government so desires. They could stop drugs and drug dealers. There'd be no rap music, no inappropriate lyrics. But when it comes to this Trump coin, this Trump stablecoin, all you have to do is wear a red hat. You can transact as much as you want. Gideon, what do you think about the idea that the government should actually be making this stablecoin rather than the billionaire's private company?
So I'm not a fanboy of governments doing anything in ecosystems or markets, let's say. In general, Liberty Finance, funny thing, by the way, is that Justin Sun bought a lot of shares there. I don't know the details, but he's fed in, let's say. So it's also a very interesting thing from my point of view.
Justin Sun also received a pardon after purchasing those shares. It worked out better than that banana duct tape art piece that he bought. Also,
but now he has also a lot of voting rights for this. Maybe in the future happening, I don't know, decisions about this platform. We will see.
it just keeps getting worse and worse. It's like one of those movies where you've sold your soul to the devil, and he's like, the deal's not over yet.
It's more like idiocracy.
It's way too much like idiocracy. Victoria Jones, what do you think? Should the government be making a stable coin, or is it best with a private company?
Well, by the very definition of a stable coin, they're stable based on existing government currencies. So yeah, it's the perfect match for them, really. But either way, they're on the way out, so I'm not worried. Thank God we've got Bitcoin.
It would be incredibly easy for them. They already produce the dollar, which, as we know, is stable and backed at $1. They could simply do the same thing with the digital dollar and say it's stable and backed at $1. No one even looks it up. Heck, they still think you could trade it for gold. And it's been like 50 years or something. It keeps getting further. Oh, well, we're moving on to the next issue. Grab bag. You have to choose the issue. Would you like to talk about Pump.fun? They've got a brand new DEX where you can trade called Pump Swap, and it's reached $1 billion in volume just a week after launch, pushing its all-time revenue to $2.1 million at the time of this article, which was 3 days ago. CoinDesk publishes long debunked Hamas financing allegations, announcing the seizure of $200,000 in cryptocurrency allegedly linked to Hamas. CoinDesk publishes long debunked terrorist financing allegations, despite the fact that Hamas says they don't even use the crypto that much. Or they helped Trump take back the White House. The rewards have come swiftly. The libertarians and Bitcoiners who invited Trump to speak at their convention have received pardons, proper nice executive orders, and support from the Treasury Department, and more. Maybe the greatest reward on a political donation ever. Ben Ark, which one of the grab bag will you choose? Trump rewarding people who gave him money and votes? CoinDesk publishing debunked Hamas financing allegations? Or Pump.fun reaching $1 billion?
I gotta go for Lola's article because she's such a great journalist, and yeah, the Rage is a great site which everyone should check in on regularly. The articles she writes are really well researched, and yeah, the work she does is great. And I think that the whole point of the article was really poking fun at CoinDesk and saying that you wrote an article about this debunked story over Hamas receiving donations in Bitcoin a few years ago, and now you're writing a new article saying that it's this big win for the US, that there was this seizure of Hamas funds, when the reality is, $200,000. I think that's just because the price went up. I think they actually received things like $23,000 or $21,000 or something. They actually received, but the interesting part is why would they then create this new article which contradicts what their previous articles wrote about the topic? And Lola was saying that, well, this is now you have these big investors like Peter Thiel and the Mighty Ducks guy, and they have like a vested interest. They're quite friendly towards Israel, and maybe there's some political agenda there behind the journalism. So she wasn't pointing out directly, but she was saying, has their journalistic integrity been impacted? Has the journalistic integrity been impacted by CoinDesk, by these new investors which have come into to CoinDesk? When really it's nothing, like a storm in a teacup. It's $200,000. The US banks launder billions of dollars annually for terrorist groups. So it really is just a nothing story. But yeah, it was a very well written, a very well researched piece. And I hope Lola continues to do all that great journalistic work she does.
It is an excellent piece by Lola, friend of the show. And I agree with Ben. It doesn't seem like CoinDesk is as trustworthy as it used to be under the new ownership. But you have to admit, it's a great story because it scares people. Terrorists using crypto. That just jumps off the page.
Well, the bit was, I mean, that was because she said like, Brock, another investor, Brock Pierce, that's it, the Mighty Duck guy, with his connection to Epstein. I didn't realize there was a connection to Brock Pierce and Epstein. And then it linked to another article about Epstein's connection to Brock Pierce, which I found fascinating.
It does say, even perhaps more insulting than calling him the Mighty Ducks guy, it says, co-founded by Epstein associate and Tether co-founder Brock Pierce, according to the article. Gideon, it's your turn to choose from the grab bag. Would you like to talk about Pump.fun's new DEX, or Trump taking the White House and rewarding the people who might have got him there?
I think I take both and can summarize that we can't ask always for more liberty and free markets and then be not okay with stories like this. I mean, this pump fund stuff and also this rewards for potential voters. Maybe we separate this political thing a bit, but in general, we can't ask for it and then discuss like, oh, is it okay to make a meme and stuff,
It is funny, Gideon. I do think that the two are strangely connected. The ability for people to make these essentially worthless memes and sell them and resell them, a very libertarian idea. But for the classic Bitcoiner, who's also libertarian, it's like, there shall be only one coin, and you're making thousands of them. So it's an interesting mix, don't you think?
Yeah, true. But most of them just look at it like a religion, So let's do them, have fun.
Victoria Jones, there could be many coins or there could be only one. Which story would you like to talk about?
Oh, it has to be Trump. Yeah.
He took back the White House and he rewarded the people who got him there. Is it the most transactional thing you ever seen? Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, they got their money's worth, but it's usually not so direct, right? With a politician, you don't always just get what you paid for, huh?
I mean, it is a fascinating story. And I think in the article, I think even David Bailey said, never in his wildest dreams could he have imagined that things would have turned out quite as dramatically as they did. Because before Trump came to the White House, Bitcoin was something that everybody trashed. And even in Trump's first term, when they had the big pump in 2017, Trump actually took credit for actually crashing the price of Bitcoin. So the idea that Trump would come back into power and be Bitcoin's greatest advocate is very strange. And really quite remarkable. But, when people actually, in spite of all the trash talk that you get in the media, when people actually sit down and understand Bitcoin, it's, a great product sells itself. And so even though obviously they've had David Bailey, sponsoring Donald Trump, really that was paying some money just to get him to sit down and listen to what this machine is that has been created that at the very least is going to disrupt America. But in the meantime, why not take advantage of it if you can. You know, we know what the end game is, but in the meantime, if you want to try and, you know, create some disruption and try and improve things for certain people, there's this tool you can use. And he's taken the bait and run with it. And it's a fascinating story.
It's true, Victoria. As the article says, David Bailey said, if a year ago you put me into hypnosis and said, describe to me your deepest dreams of what could happen, this would be straight up fantasy. I never would have believed it could happen. And it's great to have this for Bitcoin. And it's great to have someone that at least on its face supports it, even if it does seem like he supports it in a pay for play strategy. We paid him, he's playing with us. It doesn't seem like the thing where he believes in it. Like Victoria said, he celebrated the crash, doesn't really understand technology. The drug war is not over. He didn't free Ross because he disagrees with why he was in jail. And all along for the Bitcoiners, as much as I want to support it, and it's great, the government supports Bitcoin now, allegedly, it feels like we're the this is fine dog, where everything is on fire around us, and the Bitcoiners are like, this is going to work out for us. And I just don't know how it does, and we'll see how it turns out. And not a political statement, but yeah, everything does seem to be on fire.
Exactly. Couldn't say it better.
Well, very good. And we've reached the end of the show, so it's time for a prediction or a story of the week. Ben Ark, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
Not really. Sorry. No, not really. I've just been just working hard this week. I was trying to do some tutorials. I wanted to do like a building on LM-Bits tutorial, and that's what I was trying to do before the show. And then I got distracted and started playing around with Quake.js. So cool, Quake.js. I just really want to exist, and we've done it before on the show. You've said you wanted something to exist, and then it just magically exists. But what I want to exist is just Quake JS, where you can just pay an invoice, play a game, kill everybody, get the winnings. And I was trying to look into doing it, and I was going to use it for my tutorial on how to build on top of LM-Bits, but I think I've bitten off more than I can chew. And ultimately, I was just got distracted and spent 2.5 hours playing Quake.js. So I'll probably have to try and build something else. But yeah, that's not a lot this week, really. Just making some tutorials. Check them out on the LM-Bits YouTube.
Sounds fun. I think everyone would like to play Quake for Bitcoin. Gideon, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Well, it's a very German thing, but the new, not really voted, but now acting party in Germany is trying to, or thinking about not longer giving the Bitcoin holding taxes. After 1 year in Germany, you need to know you don't need to pay taxes on this profits. And they try to change it. And this is like an error for the whole German Bitcoin system. But we will see. European Union, as usual, sucks. So we will see.
It's so funny out there with these different laws. I know about people who moved to Portugal because they had really good Bitcoin rules. Then they were going to move to Germany because they, of course, had this, if you hold it for a year, you don't have to pay on the taxes rule, which is a very good rule. And now they're all changing their minds. No one can stick with anything, huh?
We will see where this ends up. But as you said, some people just registered in December for 1 month in Germany just to use this kind of hidden tax hack. Yes.
They almost like they need to standardize it for the whole EU. Victoria Jones, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Well, I'll follow on from the taxes story because, you know, in the UK, we've got the same thing going on with the Chancellor messing with the capital gains tax. So, you know, she surprised everyone by putting it up by, so for low income people, it went from 10% to 18%. And then for everybody, next week it's going up to 30%, and not many people know that. So obviously, you know, the British voted to not be part of the European Union, hoping we would have some advantage. But yeah, we've had to be taxed on our crypto since 2018, and Rachel Reeves has you know, now instituted, you know, capital gains tax. You know, capital gains taxes used to be one of the ways in which the wealthy were able to escape some of the punishing taxes income tax, and obviously those loopholes are now being closed. So yeah, and needless to say, the rest of the world will follow. But as Andreas Antonopoulos used to say, he had a great story about one of the sim games that simulated the world, and apparently the easiest way to destroy a population was to keep raising the taxes. And it's like you just said with Fine Dog, it's like the world is literally on fire, government's at the end of their rope, and so they're putting out all the stops. And so the one thing that they always avoided, because they knew it killed an economy, raising the taxes, that's the only thing they can do anymore. And it's it's going to be painful, but and they're just trying to hold off on that last moment of pain before we step into a new world. But obviously Bitcoin still has a long way to go in terms of being developed and ready for that new world. But yeah, we're reaching the crunch point, I think.
Well, it's like they say, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and stick with movie reviews. That worked out well last week, and I'm going to do it again this week. This week, I watched Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit, which ironically doesn't have very much to do with Tom Clancy, as the characters and events in the movie take place after all of the books. Ironically, it's a prequel to the Tom Clancy's movies, but it takes place around the time of 9/11, which is after the Cold War and all the Soviet events in the Tom Clancy books. However, its plot is creepily similar to today. A Russian billionaire is attempting to crash the US economy using a combination of a terrorist attack and a series of shorts against the US economy with billions and billions of dollars. It's got Kenneth Branagh, the Shakespearean actor, as the bad guy, and the director, with Keira Knightley, Kevin Costner, and that guy who played Captain Kirk one time, Chris Pine. So it was pretty good, actually, and I hadn't seen it. So check out Jack Ryan, Shadow Recruit. I also watched Empire Records. It's a light, fun comedy from the 90s about music, alternative music, and a record store. There's nothing sensational or terrifying about it, but I'm going to ruin that because I just looked up Rex Manning Day on Google, and the day that the film takes place, similar to Aristotle, the film Empire Records takes place all in one day, all at one location. That's a classic Greek play technique. Really gives you strong drama because everything is happening on this day. Rex Manning, seeming like the Partridge Family, Danny Partridge, is visiting the store. He's a lame rocker. And also, unfortunately, the date of April 8th was chosen for the film because Kurt Cobain was found dead. So much like Animal House is the day before the JFK assassination and the beginning of the Vietnam War, Empire Records is the day before everyone hears that Kurt Cobain is found dead. So there we go. I've ruined 2 comedy movies for you by making them serious political films, and it's not even my fault. I looked it up on Google. I wasn't even looking for that. I just wanted to know what day Rex Manning Day was, and it's April 8th. So that's coming up. Sorry to hear about Kurt. But I'm also listening to Dave Grohl still on his audiobook, Storyteller. It's great. But thanks to everybody for joining us. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below. Sorry for the strange start. Like I said, I pushed the live button. Usually it wants to copy and paste 3 things. This week, it was like, let's just go. So I have no idea how they decide to change these settings on Zoom and so on and so forth. But it's fun every week to see how it will work and what they'll change this time. So thanks to everybody for joining us in the chat. And until next time, bye-bye.